Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Freedom Train podcast series. I am your host, Joseph Ward, and as always, ride with me is my good homie, Mr. Patrick Irvin. Remember that the Freedom Train podcast series is brought to you by PAX Inc., and that's PACTSINC. And PAX Inc. is a Black development organization aimed at developing the Black community to its maximum potential through a focus on economics and education with the traits of hard work, honesty, and integrity. And for more information, you can visit their website at www.pactsinc.org for all of the great resources that they have. They created a code of conduct for Black America to try to help us work more as a cohesive unit. They have information on how you can become a member, how you can donate, how you can get involved with the organization. And as always, for all of our returning listeners and our new listeners, my favorite part is the Learning Center that has a plethora of resources, from audio resources, political resources, ebook, survival information, legal cases, just information for you. So visit the website at www.pactsinc.org and make sure you take advantage of the Amazon Smile program, where you can still purchase information, where you can purchase products off of Amazon. But if you register with the Amazon Smile program, and you can have a portion of your proceeds go to a nonprofit of your choice as you make your purchase. So Amazon Smile, choose PACTSINC.org. And every time you make a purchase, you will be supporting an organization that fights for the Black community. So there you have it. All right. So today's show is a real good show, and we're gonna go ahead and get into it. I know Pat and I usually have our back and forth banter, but we're gonna go ahead and get into it today. This person we have on the podcast today has been a pillar in the Tallahassee community. So I'm always talking about, when I'm in the community, certain people who I always see in the community. And I'm not just talking about like on the edges of the community. We're talking about in places in the community where you got adult grown males who are afraid to go in these places. When I'm in these places, she's in these places. Matter of fact, she's in these places more than I'm in these places. She's been working in our community for a number of years. She's dedicated a lot of her time to the children of our community, to making sure she educate people about their health, about certain foods they should and shouldn't be eating, and how to eat in moderation. She's dedicated a lot of her time to showing people how to grow foods and helping organizations that help transform a community from a food desert to a community who has fresh produce and fresh food being produced within the community. And I can't say enough about her. Our community loves her. I love her. So we want to make sure everybody show her some love. Give it up for the great Miss Miaisha Mitchell. How you doing today?
Hey, fine, brothers. How you guys?
We are doing
Hey,
amazing.
good,
All right.
good.
Excellent. All right. Good job.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You deserve all the credit you get. You deserve all the accolades you get, and just all the love you get for everything that you've brought to the community. So I do want to say thank you on behalf of myself, my family, the Freedom Train podcast series, my community, because you're one of the people who we can actually say has literally helped make this city and this community better, and you're continuing to do those actions day after day. So thank you for all that you have done.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
No problem. No
Hmm.
problem. So Patrick, I know you got something to say, so go ahead and say it, and then
I
you got the first
don't. I
question.
don't. I'm good. I'm gonna behave today. I'm good.
Be you.
Yeah, be
No,
you.
I'm gonna behave today. No, I'm good. But what I am going, no, I'm just playing. So, I'm curious though. Miss Mitchell.
Hmm.
So he was talking about the food deserts to food oases and all of those things, and I know we're gonna get deeper into those things, but I'm always curious to like find out like how people like transition into those spaces. So how did you find yourself um in these communities doing the things that you do? How did that come into your life?
Well, I think I was born into it. I come from Smoky Hollow, which is where Cascade Park is now,
Hmm.
but that's where I was born. And at that time in the 40s, that was one of the places like Frenchtown you didn't want to go to. Most people say, "Oh, who wants to go to Smoky Hollow?" Those the undesirables and all that type of thing. So we were labeled many ways that folks didn't quite know what to do with us.
Hmm.
However, like Frenchtown, like many of the places throughout the country, we had a thriving community. We
Right.
had our own businesses, we had our gardens, we had our lovely trees, all kinds of fruit trees. And we had people who loved us and family who cared for us. And as a result of that, we cared for everybody else that we could. We learned early what it meant to be a communal family, people who care for each other, how to take care of family. So that was our main focus. And so I continued over my life. I thought I would be in social work when I was 9 years old. I thought I wanted to help people. I didn't know it was social work. I didn't know
Right.
what it was called. I just knew I wanted to help people. That's because I had had so many people in my life who cared for me and watched over me, who would give me a spanking if I needed to 3 or 4 times by the time I got home. So, you just knew folks were there looking after you, had your back all the time. So that was my orientation. And so I didn't fall far from that tree.
Oh,
That's
that's
how I'm
good.
in that area because it's all about who I am as well.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And you definitely, like I said, you definitely done a great job with that. Now, I do have a follow up to that because this is something that was within you, something that you saw growing up, and it
Mm-hmm.
was just natural. You help people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but why do you think it's important for other people to serve their communities? Why is that something that should be happening?
Well, it's part of our African tradition, first of all. We are an egalitarian community. We think about everybody has a role to play. Children, mom, dad, cousins, auntie, and them, auntie, grandmamas and those. Everyone has a role to play. And in a family, you're always serving, so that's your first order, to
Hmm.
if you're around grandmother, you know you got to go pick up her shoes, you got to take her this, you got to do those types of things. So you learn service early. And
Right.
so in our communities, unless we're serving each other, there's nobody's going to serve us. We tend to do a lot for other people, but we don't do as much for us as we could. So the more we could do service and understand what it means to serve, to be able to give it yourself, and the idea of reciprocity, what goes around comes around. That's the
Hmm.
law of Ma'at. Those types of things are the order and the balance that comes to your life when you're practicing servant
Right.
attitude. So service and servant attitude is really critical if we want to survive and among the African community.
Yeah. Definitely agree with that.
So I got another off the cuff question. Hold on,
Sure
Joe. I'm
enough, go
sorry.
ahead now. It's no
Do
problem.
your
Um,
thing.
Let's go. Do what you got. Give me what you got.
so no, cause so I'm gonna ask, cause nobody else don't be asking. So I'm gonna ask, why ain't you scared to be in those communities where other people are terrified to go into?
Because those are my people. I recognize my people when I see them. Everybody got something, to bear. Some people got troubles. And plus, my orientation has always been for folks who are, let's say, downtrodden, folks
Hmm.
who are the underdogs. I tend to gravitate to all those people for some reason, because I know that they don't get a second chance oftentimes.
Right.
They may make a mistake and then they're labeled for life because of that one mistake. And that's not a fair way
Mm-hmm.
to do because all of
Right.
us make our mistakes and some of them just get caught. Some of us
Mm-hmm.
don't have $1 and to pay for our mistake, or we don't have an uncle or a daddy, to bail you out of your mistake,
Right.
and
Mm-hmm.
so that mistake gets you into trouble, puts you in the paper, puts you on the most wanted list. But some people
Right.
don't make it, but they do worse things than you do.
Right.
But
Right.
they have
Right.
those options, they have resources, and the more we shy away from folk who need our support, the worse it becomes for our community. we have to gravitate towards helping our families, no matter who they are. You know,
Right.
and I know people say you shouldn't go there, it's fearful, but quite frankly, I feel very protected. You know, I know that when I'm in that community, nobody's going to bother me. I've never
Right.
had anything. I've been there late at night, early in the morning, every kind of time you can imagine. But somebody's looking out for me all the time.
Hmm.
Which
Right.
I,
I like it.
Right. But see, she has hood immunity. And
that's what
I
they
don't know,
call.
hood immunity, because not a lot of people get hood immunity, and not a lot of people know what it is, because every hood has either one or a number of women who have given so much to the community that somebody wish you would mess with her.
Hey.
Right.
So that's you.
Right.
Yeah, I got my piece now. I tell you, because I've been around here for many years, and I have children who graduated. Now they're in college, got their little PhDs or whatever. They're all over the world,
Yeah.
and they call me and say send cards and things like that, and they still have family. I talked to a young man the other day whose family grew up with my brothers and sisters. You know, his sisters and brothers, and so it connects all over. So
Right.
there's always connections in the family, no matter what community it's in. I mean, Smoky Hollow, if I was in Springfield, Griffin Heights,
Hmm.
Bond, I got connections through all those communities.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
And for those who are watching this and listening who are not from Tallahassee, all those communities that she's naming are a lot of the communities you hear Pat and I talk about here in Tallahassee, who are the hoods, the underprivileged, the underserved communities. And it's funny. I always thought it was hilarious to see adult males and females afraid to go in certain communities, but you see a little 7-year-old girl walking down the street,
Hmm.
not even thinking about danger. She's just like,
Amen.
I'm in my community.
That's right.
Right.
This is every day. So to
Right.
see those people on
Yeah.
the outside, like, I'm not going over there, but to see a young girl like, hey, I'm here.
Amen.
Yeah.
That's right. That's your house. That's your hood.
Right.
Exactly. So
Community.
you're one of the people who have wore a number of hats as well.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, you were on the board of directors for the Second Harvest of Big Bend,
Hmm.
and I've worked with the Second Harvest of Big Bend a lot over the last couple of months doing food drives or in the at the Lincoln Neighborhood Center.
Hmm.
So for you, why did you feel that that position was a good fit for you? Like, why did you take that position as the president of the board of directors for the Second Harvest of Big Bend? And could you also give people information about the Second Harvest of Big Bend?
Well, if you think about Second Harvest, you think about Feeding America. They serve 14 counties around here in Big Bend. And it was always my thought that if you can reach people with food,
Hmm.
that's one way that you can get them to be healthier. Folks who are not well fed don't tend to have good health. And so, since my interest has always been in health and well being, I was very interested in serving on the Second Harvest Board. I remember going to a conference in, I think it was Denver, Colorado. They
Hmm.
sent the board members to learn about Second Harvest and the work they was doing. And I was struck by something that really told me that I should be moving in another direction. And I realized that at that time, Second Harvest was doing more quantity.
Hmm.
So it was based on weight in pounds of food.
Right.
It
Right.
wasn't necessarily looking at the quality of the food
Okay.
because they knew there was a lot of potato chips and Coca-Colas and products, processed foods that were being distributed
Hmm.
by the pounds. And so I was concerned about that because I was looking at more healthier options.
Right.
And so I wrote to the national office and talked about looking at healthier outcomes, so that if we could do food, let's do a little bit more balance with the quality of the food. And
Hmm.
so as a result, much of the work changed and we were able to get more focus on nutrition. So during my time as board chair, we started the child nutrition program at
Okay.
the Second Harvest to make sure that our children were fed because we recognize children need food and they need good food.
Hmm.
So along with that, we were able to helped Second Harvest start their first community garden. Where
Okay.
we were balancing out the food that they gave the families, and we planted fresh vegetables so that they can compensate and add that to the packaging.
Right.
So we were very excited about that. And so my concern was healthy outcomes, making sure that people not only get food, but they get good and healthy food. So that was our goal. So the child nutrition program is booming today. You see a lot of the backpack programs and all those things are a direct outcome of some of that work.
Okay. Okay. So so you were behind a lot of the fresh foods and the fresh produce now that are given out at Second Harvest because the cabbage look amazing.
Well, because now they have their own farm. We started the first garden right at on
Okay.
site, and now
Okay.
it's grown to have a farm. So they had the Mott farm, and it's just like amazing the food that they have.
So
Yes,
that's
yes.
great. So you literally and metaphorically planted the seed that grew to feed thousands.
Yes, indeed. I'm happy
That's
to
what's
say
up.
that.
That's what's up.
Yeah, I was very happy about that. Serving that time, Second
Right.
Harvest is a great time.
Yeah, I ate some. Go. Oh, my bad. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask, did you get any pushback when you made the suggestion to switch from quantitative to a qualitative approach?
Well, not that we were looking to switch. We were just looking at a balance, so that
Okay.
we make sure that people could have some equal access to some of the processed foods and all the other things they need as staples. You have to have your rice and your beans and
Right.
your peas, those types of things. But we also want to have the green quality. And so balancing it was where I was coming from. I always want to do not either or, but I like to balance things so
Right.
that
Right.
people can get all of what they need.
Right. Yeah, because I know now every third Wednesday of every month at Neighborhood Medical Center, we do a Second Harvest food distribution.
Right, right.
And the boxes are amazing. And one you have, like I say, the cabbage. Pat, you should see that cabbage. The purple.
Why you ain't sent me one?
It ain't gonna be good by the time it get to you.
Well, send it express.
But look, so it's like, but you got big purple cabbage, big zucchini squashes,
Oh man.
sweet potatoes, red potatoes, white potatoes, onions, all these things coming in the box.
Yeah.
Then the next
Eggplants,
box,
squash.
right, and then you got peanut butter, like other products and things that you can have for a long time. You can make whole spaghetti. They have meat, all these things, and it's amazing. So thank you for that, because literally, for those who don't know, like literally with Second Harvest, it's getting in touch with the people who do the distribution.
That's right.
And I think it's a young man. Yeah, I think the main person is a young man named DeAndre. Get in contact with DeAndre. Let them know what you want to do. Make sure you get everything set up. Have your location set up. They'll come out. They'll deliver the food. It's your job to make sure you get your setup together. Right. But when I tell you, our distribution start at 9. People are in the parking lot at 6:30.
That's right. Waiting for that wonderful box.
Right. So it's amazing out there.
It is.
Well, I would love to talk about how amazing it is, but Joe ain't sent me no box yet.
I got you, Pat. I got you.
Thank you.
So where are you, Pat? Where are you?
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
And
Well, y'all got a Feeding America there.
But we don't have the boxes like what y'all talking about.
I kind of believe you probably don't have all the things we have, because we have better food down here in terms of fresh quality.
I just saw the hurt in your eyes when you said that.
Right. Man, I got 4 kids in this house with me to feed. I can use all the boxes.
But it's amazing though. So we go from the Second Harvest of Big Bend to Tallahassee Food Network. And correct me if I'm wrong, the Tallahassee Food Network is in conjunction with the iGrow Gardens.
The Tallahassee Food Network is the organization that birthed the iGrow Garden.
Okay.
iGrow is a program of the Tallahassee Food Network.
Okay. So could you tell us about the Tallahassee Food Network and how the iGrow program branched out of that?
Well, I'd say this. So at Second Harvest, one of the things we were doing with young people was teaching them how to grow food. We started out with the the Front Porch Initiative. So all of this
Mm-hmm.
actually grew out of the Front Porch Initiative, Greater Frenchtown Revitalization
Right.
Council, and Governor Bush's Front Porch. So out of Front Porch came a program called Youth Leadership Development Academy. And this academy were young children we took every summer in 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7, and get them employed in the community. We pay for their 6 to 8 weeks of service to any area that they want to track, shadow somebody. Say if they want to go into health, we would put them with a pharmacist or with a physician. If they want to go into technology, we put them with IT people, depending on what they wanted. And so we matched them up. We did 10 every summer. So we paid them at that time, this is at 2004, 5, 7, we paid them to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
The community had a wonderful worker, and so everybody was happy. So one of the young people was placed at Second Harvest because they wanted to learn more about food and nutrition. And so part of what we did with that group that summer was to go to Second Harvest and develop the garden.
Mm-hmm.
The children then said, we want to be able to have our own farm. And so they talked a lot about the farming part. And we've been talking about connecting Tallahassee Food Network with the children and showing them how to grow food
Mm-hmm.
and going different places to put in gardens. This time they want to do their own farm. So as a result of that, that grew out of, iGrow came out of that whole initiative with the Yellow Group. They would grow buckets. I mean, they made, I don't know if you saw the grow buckets they made. They made their
Yes.
own pattern. That was their developed pattern. They went to an IT group, designers over IT Tech, and the design team helped them do this water bucket, self-watering. So if you wanted to plant something in your bucket, you could. We put compost in if you wanted. We put a seed in there, or we grow a full plant. So the children made money. So one summer they produced about 3,000 buckets for summer schools, and made $22 a wop, for just a plain bucket, and then $25 to $30 for a bucket that was fully composted and ready to go. And so those young people were so innovative. And then they said, okay, we could do buckets, but we also need our own farm. That's how we got the iGrow farm.
Okay.
But we were doing the work long before the farm came along.
Right.
The kids were out there, building gardens and going to other people and show them how to grow food and that kind of thing. So
Right.
the Tallahassee Food Network is about having access to affordable, fresh, accessible, local food, fresh,
Right.
local.
Okay.
And we pride ourselves on being in a position to grow food so that people can have food all the year round. We have giving trees. We've had programs so people can come in and have discussions around what we call our collards and cornbread meetings, where we have collards and cornbread as a staple, but folks can bring their own food for the lunch discussion.
Okay.
And that has been the saving grace for our network.
I bet.
Yeah, boy. Folks would come for that. And then out of that, people would do their food dreams. And when you talk about a food dream, everybody has one. And so several people have grown really new businesses out of that network. So we're very happy to say we've been entrepreneurship, opportunity-based employment opportunities all along, getting people jobs. That's what we have done for many, many years. Starting with the young people, that's youth focus, and selling to restaurants. We have 9 restaurants that we sell to. We're trying to build now a mobile market called the Hucksters, so that we can actually get food to people in isolated areas who cannot get to the sharing of the food for farm share or with Second Harvest, because they're in designated locations and many people don't have transportation. So our need is to try to get that food to them in hard to reach populations.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you're definitely doing it. Now, I do wish more of the communities took better advantage of the gardens.
Yeah.
But the fact that the gardens are there and still active is a victory. That's
It
right.
is. It was a total. For a
Right.
while, it was tough because the winter time or the summertime can destroy your crops.
Yeah.
So we've had some tough times in that regard, but we're trying to look at building a beautiful greenhouse that would allow us to grow year round. So that's our next step,
Right. Okay.
along with the truck. Yeah.
And, and Pat, next time you're in Tallahassee, I'm taking to the gardens because it's one garden that's by Hollyfield, and there's one garden in D Block in Frenchtown. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna take you to those.
Yeah, come down on Dent Street. That's where we are
Hmm.
now. Yeah, we had a location on the Dunn Street side. We moved our location to the Dent Street side. So when you come, you'll see
Right.
we're clearing now, getting ready for our herbal gardening because we are doing some herbal medicines as well. And we are trying to look at how you process those things because a lot of our seniors are some are, they're from Trinidad, they're from Jamaica, they're from Africa, they're from all over, and they want to have indigenous food. So
Hmm.
they want to show us how to plant their food
That's
and
cool.
and some of the plants they say are medicinal. So we're trying to learn about all that as well.
Right.
Hmm.
That's cool.
It is cool. It's so much fun. It is a lot of
So
fun. Yeah.
we're doing a lot of talking about food, which I haven't eaten all day, so that's not
Me
helpful.
neither.
All right.
But it does put me in the mind of, like, there's been a lot of talk about food deserts up here. And
Hmm.
it's been interesting because there isn't really a lot of talk about what a food desert is. It's kind of like assumed that everybody knows what it is.
Mm.
So could you let some of our listeners or viewers know what a food desert is and um, how they come into being?
Hmm. Well, that's a good one about how they come into being. Well, typically, the definition of a food desert is usually any place where people have access, a lack of access to fresh, wholesome, good quality food, locally grown, or served at a grocery store within a mile of your area. So
Okay.
if you're outside of a mile, 2 miles, and many people are 2 to 3 miles from a grocery store, where you can get good fresh vegetables, then you would consider it maybe a food desert. And now, people who are in those desert areas tend to be folk who look like us. Folks who are exposed to more food swamps than there are um, grocery stores. So if you look at
Okay.
a food swamp, Joe, if you look on the corner of Orange Avenue
Hmm.
and Monroe,
Hmm.
what do you see?
This is
Four
Taco
corners.
Bell, Taco
Yeah.
Bell, McDonald's, Burger King, Lindy's, the gas station. Bad food, bad food, bad food, bad food.
Smoke shops, fried
Right.
food. You got everything right there. But those are swamps because they are really toxifying a lot of the food that our people are eating on a daily basis. When you're looking and you're buying your food from the gas station, you know, what's that saying? It's
Hmm.
pretty hard, for people to get good food from the gas station. And
Right.
if they can, many of the convenience store owners tell us that they would like to be able to have fresh food, but nobody buys it. That's one
Mm,
of the biggest problems we have. And that's why we suffer like this because people don't recognize the value of eating good, locally grown, healthy food. And we
mm-hmm.
certainly don't understand the value of growing your food. So we've lost contact. That's why we're in the situation we're in because we've not valued that ourselves enough to say, I'm going to do like my grandmama did. I'm going to have a little garden, even if I just
Hmm.
grow
Mm-hmm.
collard greens. My great grandparents did that. But when you ask people how many of those have gardens, or how many of their parents have gardens, or how many of their grandparents have gardens, you can see what happened. This generation, they don't do gardening,
Right.
that because they associate it with slavery, hard work. It's hard work.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to work in the garden. Nobody, because you think that was slavery. It's too close to being in the field all day.
Right.
But,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
one thing about it, you can certainly eat. And we ate very good when we were younger because everybody had a garden.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had access to fresh fruit, and fresh vegetables. And that's the missing staple that we have today in our families. So those swamps populating in our communities like crazy. They're easy to get to. Transportation, you get the buses right there. You don't have to worry about lack of transportation. You can get to any place where you can get to McDonald's. The bus goes right along the route. I can tell you that. So if you want to get to a healthy whole food, you got to go 3 or 4 buses to get there. So it's just the difference in how you get the
Yeah.
food, So it
Yeah.
makes it very tough. So moms who have children who work all day taking care of somebody else's children, by the time they get home to feed their own children, they don't have the energy. And so many of them don't even know how to cook. And so they end up going to get that snack pack, which is cheaper than going to the store and buying some wholesome food that you got to prepare. And
Yeah.
it's just that conducive, let's say, for a lot of people to do that when they don't have all the resources. They can't get a car to get there. They have 3 or 4 children they can't take with them to the grocery store. So it's easier just to pop in there and get somebody to bring you a meal that the kids get. That so it costs $2 and $3
Yeah.
at the most. So
Yeah.
you could feed 3 children for $10. And y'all got a meal,
Yeah.
a
Those
happy
dollar
meal.
menus, the 4 for 4s. Yeah.
Yeah, those happy
Yeah.
meals. That's what the children love them. They got
What? Yeah.
addicted to them.
A
Yeah.
great example of that is right now, because let me give you a visual, Pat. If you remember, because Pat is from Tallahassee, so if you
Okay.
remember, at the light of Brevard and Old Bainbridge, there was that Pharaoh Center building that used to always have the pictures of the people,
Mm-hmm.
but they've turned that into a couple restaurants and some of the
Right.
buildings. So there's a lemon pepper restaurant. The name of the restaurant is Lemon Pepper Fried Everything. Like
Right.
it's like the hip hop chicken and fish. It's like fried everything, gizzards, all that, right?
Yeah.
So you have lemon pepper, then you have a vegan restaurant that's owned by a black guy. So lemon pepper is, I don't know the ethnicity of them, but they not black. And the vegan restaurant is owned by black people.
Mm-hmm.
So which restaurant do you think has a line out the door?
Around the
Lemon
corner.
fried food,
Right,
everything.
That's
right.
Fried food, everything.
That's right.
But I am happy that though in that neighborhood you have a vegan restaurant around the corner from a garden. So I'm happy it's there. But now it's to getting the switch to
Yeah.
going to the restaurant rather than the lemon pepper.
Well, the other part of it is the expense too.
That
So
is
you
true.
could get a nice 2-piece chicken and fries for $3.
Look, that I'm
That
not
sells
gonna
it every
lie.
time.
I'm not gonna lie. I get 2 of those $1.99 chicken specials, and I'm
I'm trying to
good.
tell you.
Right, but I do know the value of I need to go to this restaurant. I need to spend money with this restaurant. I know this food is healthier for me.
Mhm.
So
And it's
yeah,
costly. So that's the other
yeah,
part of it.
yeah, it
So
is,
you're
and it
paying for
is.
what you need. But that's the other thing that people always say is that eating healthy is expensive. Well, it can be if you're eating out,
Hmm.
but if you're making your food at your house, oh, you can't beat collard greens and rice,
Right,
cornbread.
Mm-hmm.
right. That's not
Yeah.
that
Mm-hmm.
And
expensive.
no, it's not, you can definitely go with that,
Right.
I
Mhm.
think people are, like you said earlier, Miss Mitchell. I think people are addicted to that stuff, though. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they just find reasons to justify their addiction. Like eating healthy is expensive. No, it's not. You just want a Big Mac. Just say you want a Big Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah. The funny thing, and this is not funny though, this is real. There was a young man who was about 29 years old when he got a job at I think it was Burger King. He was in good health because he had just had his physical and everything, good health. I saw him about 6 months later. He gained about 20 pounds.
Mm.
In another 6 months, he was like over 50 pounds, right?
Hmm.
So I said, "What's wrong?
Mm.
What's up?" He said, "I just got out of the hospital. I had a heart attack."
Wow.
I said, "You
Mm.
did? What happened?" He ate those meals every day.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Every day. He gained weight because he was working there. They give you free meals and all that stuff,
Right.
And so he was just feasting, just having a good time. And just weight just crept up on him. And all of a sudden, he was like addicted, and that's what he ate. And his heart couldn't take it. So by 30, he had a heart attack.
Right.
That was
Right.
not good. I said, oh my goodness. So the message in this thing is that not only is you're talking about people being addicted, but folks don't recognize the health
Right.
outcomes, of this food. And, if it's done long range, you can't do it all the time. And every once in a while, you might have pop up. I get a fish sandwich. I love McDonald's fish sandwiches, but I don't do that all the time. That's not my regular. So you got to get something established on the regular, and then you can
Right.
do something on the outside of that. But
Right.
that's what's happening with people. They're doing that on the regular, and that's
Right.
not
Right.
healthy. Mm-mm.
Right. Right. Right.
It's,
Yeah.
it's everything in moderation, That's all the way that is.
Yeah.
And eating fast food every day on a regular get to be expensive too. Like,
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nowadays, you have to pay $5 for a burger. Come on.
Yeah.
Like,
It used to be $1.99.
Yeah. That's why I like to make sure that we encourage people and educate people about the foods that they're eating. I'm not. It's funny. It's funny that this is a joke, but at my job, I'm the salad man. So it's like, all right, we got salad left over. Give it to Joe.
Joe.
And I'm talking about a big bowl full of salad. Now, I like salad, but not that much. But it's just like, all right, everybody knows, okay, if it's salad left over, give it to me. Because
Give it to Joe, right.
I like vegetables and I like
That's right.
salads. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, why don't you all?
Come on, share the love. Share the
Exactly.
what's wrong
Exactly. It's like, am I the only one who get this? It's like, it's almost like it's like they're saying, I don't like breathing air. You breathe the air. I don't want to breathe it. It's like, we need this.
You know what's funny about that is I teach critical thinking, and one year we had a class that didn't. There was like 4 or 5 kids in the class that didn't like drinking water.
See? Ooh, that's serious right there.
Yes.
They
Yes.
did not like it. It was like, it's nasty. I was like, what do you mean it's nasty? It don't taste like nothing.
Yeah, because
That's
they
what
got no
they
sugar.
said to me. 'Cause I was like, what
Exactly.
do you mean it's nasty? And they was like, it don't taste like nothing. And I was like, how is that nasty? And they was like, it need to burn my throat a little bit. For
Ooh.
That's that McDonald's
And
Sprite.
well, that's a Sprite thing. And not only that,
Yeah.
you know what? I used to, when I was to cover in the hospital in the emergency room. So when I'm on call, I have to go in the middle of the night. And so many of the people who come in there had heart palpitations, they had back pains, they had leg cramping, they were constipated, they had headaches, you name it. And you know what was wrong? They were dehydrated. And so they gave them a lifeline, the fluid, and sent them home. That is serious. That's a lot of money to have to pay to get some fluid in your body.
Yeah.
When you should drink water every day, 3 or 4 times, 5 times a day.
Exactly.
Kids don't understand that their body is made of water, and you gotta have water, every single day. And so that's why 80% of the people we see who are on dialysis, or guess what? They're us.
Yeah.
Because first of all, they're not eating well, they're not drinking water. And this generation doesn't drink water, like you say, Patrick. And then they're using sugar. Everything has to have sugar. And so when you had that kind of combination, that's deadly to the kidneys. Kidneys can't handle all of that. So we have people now who are on dialysis in their late 30s. That's an old person's thing. You got to be 60, 70, 80 to be on dialysis. Not now. These children, who in their 30-something, when you're hitting 40, they are on dialysis already. That is not healthy.
Yeah.
That tells me that something is really wrong. So it all starts with the food, because food is the medicine. Food is either it can heal you or kill you, and we know this.
Right.
And until we understand what that truly means, we are not going to get it right.
Exactly.
And we had those early deaths. That's just that connection. You see it all the time, Joe. You at the clinic. You know what's going on.
Yeah. I had a friend tell me about his experiences with kidney stones over 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now I was already drinking because we're from the generation we drunk water out the water hose.
Yeah,
So we,
wherever.
so we're used to drinking all types of
Still
water,
do.
Yeah,
right?
right.
But just on a health level, listening to him describe the pain of having kidney stones,
Ooh.
and then talk about the frequency that he drinks sodas.
Oh,
So for me, but it's just for me, water has always been the only thing that could quench my thirst. Like
that's right.
I like the taste of a soda every now and then, but water is the only thing that quenches my thirst.
That's
It
right.
ain't nothing like cold water.
Ooh.
I keep a cup filled with water in the refrigerator, and everybody in the house know
Don't
that's
touch.
daddy cup of water. Don't touch it. And if it's low
Uh-huh.
and they in a good mood, they even fill it up for me. But bruh,
Water's good.
bruh. Yeah, I be done drunk the water and got mad because the cup is empty. And be looking around like, who drunk my water? Oh, I drunk my water. All right. Look, man, water is what it is. But with them kids, I'm like, yo, burn the back of your throat. Have y'all been drinking malt liquor? Like,
Bourbon or something.
like, what is happening?
What? That's right. It's sad.
Yeah.
But you know,
Yeah.
that's the really saving grace when you recognize how important water is.
Exactly.
And for young people particularly, because they talk about a real addiction, that sugar Jones is
Yes. Yes.
that right
Yes.
there, that kills you every time. And so,
Exactly.
we understand that there's a connections to all those organs in the body. So when you start putting in substitutions for water, then that means that your internal organs are gonna suffer
Right.
along the route
Right.
every time. So the kidneys being the first to go.
Right.
And once the kidneys go, everything else is gonna follow. Because that's the ruler right there.
Yeah.
Kidneys is the seat of the spirit, so you kill your spirit, then what you gonna have? You can't do
Exactly.
anything.
Exactly.
It's like,
Exactly.
no.
And I'm gonna encourage all parents to look at your kids' cereal.
Mm, mm, mm.
And even if you buying the healthy cereal, because I thought I was slick buying healthy cereal, and then I caught one of my kids, and they basically had a bowl of sugar with cereal and milk in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was bad. Why?
Wow.
Like,
I hear you. I feel you.
pay
Yeah.
attention. I felt so awful because I
Mm.
thought I was doing something, and then like he came walking by me with a bowl full of sugar. I felt
See
so
that?
bad.
Look like a Scarface scene.
Right, like I felt so bad. I was like, "Yo, are you gonna eat any cereal with that sugar, or you just sugar and milk in it, huh? That's what we doing. Okay,
That's it.
that's what we doing."
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good book called The Sugar Jones.
Hmm.
Yeah, if you ever read that book, it really is by somebody named Duffy. But I read
Turning me
that
on.
many, many years ago. And that really, one of the things that really struck me was about going to war, warfare. And one of the art of engagement is that when you go into a new place, what do you think people bring with them? They bring
Like what?
candy, right? They
Yeah.
bring chocolates. They bring
Yeah.
all that sweet stuff to give to the people that you're going to kill soon.
Wow. you know,
Yeah,
wow.
I had it.
Colonization is real.
I'm here to tell you. And that's no
That was a
different from
wonderful
all
way to
that
put it.
sugar that we
Right.
have right in the front of our children's faces when they go into the grocery store. Because there's a line up on the side. It's right there. It's like cigarettes used to be a long time ago. Cigarettes used to be right there at the counter level, at the eye level. So when the 3-year-old are going
Yeah.
to the store, they can see the candy cigarettes. And they would say, Mommy, can I have the candy
Right.
cigarettes? And then they had the real cigarettes next to the candy cigarettes.
Hmm.
And so one of the initiatives I work with here with the SWAT Coalition and the Truth Campaign,
Hmm.
was to get those cigarettes moved behind the counter. So
Yeah.
anybody who
Yes.
wanted them could have the ID to get them.
Hmm.
Because the tobacco industry banks on developing young smokers because they're a business entity.
Right.
And so they don't care how many you steal. That's why they put them out there so you can steal all the packs you want. And by the time they recognize it, they got a whole budget line item for stolen property.
Right. Right.
So you can get as much cigarettes as you want. Don't have to worry about it, but you're addicted soon. And so that's the next generation of smokers. And that's
Yes.
the real big problem with our children in marketing and advertising too. So we've been doing a lot of work around that, but training our young people to recognize those things and marketing strategies as well.
Uh,
Because all that
yeah.
smoking cuts down on appetite, it impacts your eating practices and habits. So folks who smoke don't eat well, because they don't have to, because they have a nicotine kind of thing, and they
Right.
don't desire any food and don't desire no water. They want salt and they want a drink, a
Yeah.
Pepsi Cola or Coca Cola.
You know, two things from what you just said. One is you are literally connected to like almost every good thing that's going on in the community. Because I remember the SWAT campaign. I had no idea you were part of the SWAT campaign.
Yeah, I was the
Like,
first. Let me tell you, the tobacco industry when they first came out, I testified before the Senate Select Committee to get that billions, $40 billion we
mm-hmm.
got, in Florida, because Florida and Texas were the leaders in the campaign for the Truth campaign. You remember those advertisements they made when the
Yes.
kids were doing well? Those were our groups of children with Lawton
Okay.
Childs.
Okay.
And my daughter Amandla was the youth leader for the SWAT team, students working
Okay.
against tobacco. And I was the adult leader for the folks who were doing the tobacco coalition in the state of
Right.
Florida. So through Lawton Childs, that's how we got that whole Truth campaign and that funding.
Right. And so the second thing from what you said, a light bulb went off because I thought about the book Things Fall Apart and Destruction of Black Civilization.
Yes.
How they talked about the missionaries being sent there 30 years before the invasion to weaken the people. So you couple that,
Yes.
couple tactics like that with the sugar invasion. So we're gonna come in, we're gonna be friendly,
That's
we're gonna
right.
tell you, we're gonna give you a new God, a new religion, a new way of life, a new name, and a whole new diet that's unhealthy for you.
Addiction.
Make you addicted to alcohol, cigarettes, and junk
That's right.
food.
Exactly.
So you'll be easier to kill off.
Thank you. You're
Yeah.
going to kill off yourself first. So we don't have to worry about you. It's a matter
Exactly.
of time,
And the psychological component, right? I'm giving you something that's giving you a rush. I'm sating your desire. You don't see me as a threat.
Right. Right.
That's the deep part, isn't it?
Right. Well, because think about it. When you go into the corner stores, I'm gonna say it right. This one I used to say corner store, but I'm gonna pronounce it right. But you go into the corner stores and you see these big men, these grown men, these big men, and the dude behind the counter is berating him like he's a child. And the grown man takes it because he knows that if I don't take this abuse, I'm gonna have to go way on over to this other store to get what I need instead of being able to come back in here. So I'm gonna be docile because I'm low key or unbeknownst, or even may know I'm addicted to these things that's in here because you brought it in under a guise of friendship, but it's really not because the way you treat me and the way you feed me. So.
Yeah, a lot of contradictions there, So, and our people don't recognize it because they don't see it. And that's the one thing I think that young leaders ought to be doing. I know you had a question there somewhere about something like this, what some people should do. And I'm just jumping ahead on that because
Go ahead.
one thing I know when I was sort of growing up and in my early 20s and 30s something, one of the things we did was we learned about the destruction of Black civilization. We learned about Chancellor Williams under the development of Africa. We learned about the work that Walter Rodney did. We learned about Stokely Carmichael and Dr. Ben Jacana. We learned about these folks, and not only did we learn from them because they had classes, and we would make sure we got to those classes. And every Saturday we had something going on. Wow. Somebody was training us. So if you want to be a leader, you got to get trained. You got to know what you're
Yeah.
dealing with. You know, you got
Yeah.
to have some backdrop. So, you know, when you mention underdevelopment of Africa's or America, Black communities, oftentimes it's because we don't have the necessary orientation, education, and training. We don't take time to sit and listen to the people who've done the work.
Right.
You know, I read their words, you know, and hear their stories. That is so critical. I remember when I was in Minnesota, I left Tallahassee to go to grad school at the University of Minnesota. And every time there was a significant player, you know, like a Stokely or a Dr. Ben or Dr. Naeem Akbar, you know, who would come to town, we we demanded. Well, we didn't have to do much demanding because the students were very good at University of Minnesota. But we said every time you have a person who comes here of that stature, they need to come to our community. You just leave them on the campus like we do here. You just said into the campus, nobody know they was here. You find out about them, it was in the Capital Outlook. That was 2 weeks ago that somebody prominent was in Tallahassee. But when they hit the ground, they go to do the campus stuff, whatever they pay them for, because they pay for them to get here. But then the community has to benefit from that person being in our community. And so therefore, we have what they call a Saturday school for public instruction. And the public instruction was just that. Those folks who were guest visitors who came at the university as well, came to our community, train our people as well. So they got the same level of knowledge the college kids were getting, you know, at orientation. Those are kinds of things that help us to develop, you know, early on. But those were other schools. They weren't here in Tallahassee, you know, like that. I think that's something that we really need to look at. How might we can do these at these universities and form partnerships with the universities so that you have that type of relationship and educated mind, you know, is really important. You know, you don't have to go to school to get it. You can have it from people in your community, like you say, Patrick, who are critically thinking about what we should be doing moving forward. You know, and you know, young leaders need to know these things. I was listening to someone who one of the students who was talking about King, and he was saying, "Oh, Martin Luther King was in Tallahassee, and he did his work here. I mean, in Atlanta, he's organizing lots of." Well, King didn't do much organizing in Atlanta because his daddy wouldn't have it in it. You know, he did his stuff in Alabama. He went and did all them Alabama plays, but you don't hear him doing a lot of work in Atlanta. You know, so that's a distinction that people need to know. You know, it's not just something because he lived there. That was his home base. But his organizing efforts came in Alabama. And his resting place was here in Florida, Tallahassee. A lot of people don't even know that. You know, that when he came, you know, from those trips from Selma, Birmingham, and Montgomery, his next stop was Tallahassee, Florida. Because this is his resting place. And then he would go home now to get himself prepared and do his writing and stuff like that up in Atlanta. So there are certain things that folks don't really understand in terms of historical perspectives that I think really is important for us to know, you know, and then how do we get there? We collaborate, you know, partner up with other people who have the resources because we don't have those resources. But the universities are supposed to work with us. And so we can call them upon to do those things.
I'm writing that down. Actually, Joe.
She just gave y'all a master class. Pay attention.
Because
seriously,
because I know here in Charlotte, they're always having somebody come in at the university here.
That's right. All of them.
I've always wondered, is it possible to have them? So you basically just answered a question that I've been having for a while, was just too scared to ask. So it's kind of like, now, like, and if we can make that happen in Tallahassee too,
yes,
like,
we should.
Down for it.
I think we should.
Great.
That's a piece of our agenda that all the African students should be working towards. You know, to really get like we have a in Tallahassee, we're sitting on top of the mountain with Dr. Naeem Akbar.
Yes.
You know, Dr. Naeem Akbar is well renowned.
Yes.
And he is from Tallahassee. And most of us don't even know him. You know, FSU students were privileged because he taught there. If you were across the track at FAMU, you may have heard of him, you know, but you didn't know that he was from Tallahassee because he was always out in the world somewhere. But
Right.
Dr. Naim Akbar is a gold mine. And so somehow we got to find a way to make sure we take care of that brother and get him
Yes.
out here so he can help us understand, especially with young Black men.
Right.
His work, his books around developing young men is just remarkable.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
we need to have that leader, that mindset to help us think critically. Because when we don't have something like that going, critical thinking is out the window,
Right.
you know.
So and so some of that leads me to thinking about revitalization of our communities. Because I know you are the executive director of the Frenchtown Governors Revitalization Council.
That's right.
So, from your experience working on the council and just your experience in the community, like our generation, what should our generation be doing to help revitalize or build or rebuild our own communities for ourselves and future generations?
Take a chapter out of Stacey Abrams' book.
Okay.
Stacey Abrams helped to organize 800,000 new voters. That's how Joe Biden won.
Right.
Nobody's talking about that. But these women have been organizing, they tell about the Sojourner legend. They've been organizing people to vote for many, many years. And the fact that vote got Joe Biden where he is today is just remarkable. So it didn't happen overnight, but young minds, like all these students in these HBCUs ought to be on that chapter, because if we took that chapter and really made it like she did it, a playbook, imagine what could happen. Imagine what could happen. It would be an awe that we have a Black president or a Black woman president. It would not be an awe, because we would have prepared ourselves for that. And we have the people, the redlining and all that stuff that goes with it, and redistricting and all that has to take a second stand. But getting involved at the political scene is really important. Young people are not as engaged as they need to be. To revitalize anything, you need to get to the meetings. You need to know what's going on. You need to know what's going on locally. I mean, we are abreast pretty much of the national scenes and some things regionally, but locally, our city councils and our commissioners should be loaded with people who look like us.
Yeah.
Just to reflect the population even.
Yeah.
So just to think about advocating for those simple things like getting people registered to vote, getting people thinking about what it means to be an active citizen. And anybody who's an active citizen would understand voting is not all there is to having a democratic voice, to be able to be publicly speaking about things that matter to you and the people in your peeps, your people in your hood, and naturally, whatever benefits the people in your hood gonna benefit somebody else. We always knew that. We're never selfish like that. We always make sure that we do right for our people, but doesn't mean we're not gonna do right for everybody else. And so, first of all, getting to understand that active citizenship is critical. You need to understand diversity. People say, well, I can't work with this person because they this, that, and other. Hey, it's a public world. If you want to do anything different in the world, you have to act in a public way. When you go into the public, nobody has to like you. Because your mama gonna love you at home, but that's private. But when you go outside and you expect people to love you or like you, when you're in the public world and you quit your job because you couldn't get along with somebody, excuse me, you need to know that in the public world, it's not about loyalty. It's about getting the job done. So if you can recognize those basics, what it means to have diversity around you, what it means to have inclusion, what it means to have equity, so that people who don't have the resources can actually get those resources so they can have a level playing field. Those are kinds of things we should be advocating for, so that all of us, these young educated minds are coming out, they should know these things, fundamental principles of citizenship. It's just not about voting. It's about how you treat everybody every day, how you hold yourself accountable, understand the difference between public and private, Understanding your own self-interest. You have a voice and you have a right to say what's on your mind and articulate what matters to you
Right.
and what matters to the people that are around you that you care about. We're afraid a lot of times. And if you look at the mural, have you seen the mural, Joe? That's over at the corner of Martin Luther King and Georgia Street with Rosa Parks.
No, I
And
haven't seen it yet.
okay, well, we just put up a mural for Rosa
Okay.
Parks and RBG.
I saw RBG, but I didn't see. I think I might have wasn't paying attention with the Rosa Parks, but I
Okay,
saw
well,
RBG.
yeah, well, both those are on the wall of that
Okay.
building right there. That's my office building right there at that corner.
Right.
Well, we did that because we wanted young minds to start thinking about not only the arts and the beauty of art, and that we've lost that art because many of the artists, the people who, like you guys, are writers or spoken word people, or the people who do fine arts, creative arts in any way, they're the conscious of us. You know, they're the
Mm-hmm.
ones that give us the way of our being and tell our stories and things like that. But we don't give them the level of understanding and play that they need. So we want to put out Rosa and RBG because of their righteousness, their justice, and their social justice aspect of the work they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so started people to educate folk around those things. And if it has to do through the arts, put a mural up somewhere in the community and make people wonder, well, who in the world is that? You know?
Right.
And then you have the kids got to ask you questions so they go make your game sharper because you got to go find out what's going on.
Right. Right.
So I think it's important when you talk about revitalization, you know, you go back to your own roots. You know, art in this Frenchtown area has always been center. You know, this was a cultural arts and entertainment neighborhood.
Yes.
You know, and so everybody would come to Tallahassee. Everybody came to Tallahassee would come to Frenchtown
Mm-hmm.
because they knew that's where the arts was. That's you know, the entertainment was. They knew whether you could have some fun and get some good food. And yet people were self-reliant. They had their own cleaners. They had their own grocery stores. We had 3 grocery stores, almost 5 grocery stores in Frenchtown at one time. We had
Wow.
a hospital. We had a movie theater. We had everything that you could name for a thriving community in Frenchtown. Same as we did in Smoky Hollow. Same as we did any place else you can name where Black people were, you know, all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
But what you got to recognize is that what happened in Frenchtown, what happened in Charlotte, in Charleston, and any place else in the world, they weren't isolated incidents.
Right.
Those things happen meticulously. You got to check it out because I lived in Boston for a long time. And I thought what was going on in Boston was unique. But when I came to Tallahassee, I realized what was happening in Boston was happening in Tallahassee. You
Yeah.
know,
Yes.
same in Minnesota. There are places where Black people are that we're experiencing the same thing. We don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting to know where your people are, getting to know what their experiences are, sharing those stories, using social media for what it's worthy for, you know, to sharing ideas about revitalizing what's going on in your community, not just what you're looking like today, how your extensions are, you know what kinds of jobs you got. All those are good things, but you also got to remember, if you have a servant attitude, you got to be about finding out what's going to be the best long range, not what's going to happen next year, because people are planning 50 years out.
You're right.
So what's happening now just didn't happen. It's been on the paper for 20 years. So what happened with Smoky Hollow, and I watched this, I didn't know what I was looking at because I was a child. But when they asked our families to leave Smoky Hollow in the 60s and said that was because of urban renewal, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so now they call it gentrification and everything else. But that was in order for us to have better housing improvement. Well,
Mm-hmm.
did you see any housing down there now? And
No housing.
it took 40 years to get there, right? 40
Right.
years
Right.
from 64 to 2008. Imagine that.
Right. Right.
So, you know, you have it's more than 2008 because it just developed Smoky Hollow about 6 years ago. But I'm just saying all this to say that there are plans always around us. We need to know what's going on. We need to read. We need to go to these meetings and hear what these people are talking about and say, well, how does that relate to me? How does it relate to our family? I can tell you one thing I know to be true. So when we were growing up, the thing was always to get an education, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get an education, it's going to take you da, 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 da. Sure. So we all strive to do that. But the other part of that, once you get the education, there's certain limitations to that, because in order to get an advanced education, like the people before us, like our teachers, they couldn't get a master's degree in Tallahassee.
Right.
They had to go north, right? So they had to leave home, right? Go get the education, didn't come back. So that set a trend. So we ended up, all the young resources ended up leaving Tallahassee and putting
Yes.
our resources in our younger life into other places.
Yep.
Big mistake.
Right.
That's the biggest trick that's been played on us.
It's still happening.
And
Our
it's still
talent is
happening.
still leaving the Tallahassee.
Everybody says, when I get my degree, I'm leaving here.
Right.
But guess what happens when you come back? Your parents done lost their house, the taxes or whatever, because we weren't paying attention, or other kinds of things have occurred. We could have had businesses in our families' names. That's gone. That opportunity has passed us back because we weren't watching the development. So everybody in Tallahassee now has all kinds of entrepreneurship and opportunities going on, except our people.
Right.
And so we got to watch that revitalizing language, because it all sounds pretty good. Oh yeah, that'd be great for you to have a nice new house and affordable housing, da 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 da. But if you look at Ebony Gardens, remember that, Joseph?
Yep.
That 100 families live there, right there at the corner of 4th Avenue
Yep.
and Macomb. The idea was to move those people out so that they could have better housing and they could come back. So when they said that, everybody was, oh yeah, we can come back. But believe me, the people who were there, I guess about, if it was 10% came back, that would have been great. And less than that came back, because what happened was they were forced out of the market.
Yep.
When they came back, they weren't paying 30% of the income, on their rent. They were paying now 60 and 80%. So the market had pushed them out. But so they couldn't come back. There were a few people who got in at the 30%. When you had the 100 people left and only about less than 10% could come back.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Yeah.
The rest of the 90% are in the 60 and 80% market share.
Right. And if it wasn't economics, it was whether you had a felony or all these other things, all those other factors played into
You couldn't get in there. So all those factors. So we got to know, we have to understand the playbook, and how it's working in our communities. So we talk about the language, we talk about gentrification, we talk about redlining, we talk about urban renewal, we talk about what's the other one that in the 60s that many people, whatever, we all got caught up in trying to get that better education, but we had to leave home to do it. And so we lost track of 10, 15 years, because we're out there getting our thing.
Right.
And nothing wrong with it to some degree. But you got to remember, when you leave home, you got your parents there trying to make it. And they're not going to be able to get the help they need if they don't have you watching their back.
Right. Right.
That's a key thing right there. And so now they're suffering because many of them couldn't work. They didn't have Social Security. Like a lot of my family members were domestic workers. So they now try to get Social Security, but you only get $700 a month if you didn't have any money to put in. What can you do? So you're living now in these situations that really were uncalled for, because I remember one thing that struck me when we were told to leave Smoker Hall in 1960. It's the same time when they were developing HUD, right, in public housing, right? The public housing rules and regulations were different. So in our community, we have what we call extended families. So grandmama and them live with us, some cousins, and some people we didn't even know who lived there who needed a place to stay, right? But everybody stayed, that was the way it was in the community. But when we had to leave and go to the project, guess what? HUD says you can't bring your extended family. Sorry.
Right. Right.
Only you and your children, your husband and wife. And if you ain't married, you can't bring your
Right.
boyfriend.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
you know, the man who been taking care of your common law husband, forget that. You know, that kind of stuff was off the books. So folks didn't understand the impact of systems. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
got to know systems when you're doing this type of work. If you want to be a leader, you got to understand how the system impacts. And don't go for that pulling your stuff up by your own bootstrap nonsense,
Right.
because that does not work in our community.
Right.
Right.
How,
Nobody has done that.
no, you can't do it
Right.
when you ain't got no boots to wear. So
Right.
forget
Right.
You ain't
all
got no
that.
boots.
You ain't got no
Right.
boots, and you ain't getting no boots. So you can forget all that. So you need to have understanding of systems, and every system works together. Because in Smoky Hollow, as I look back over the years, there were several systems were in play. One was transportation.
Mhm.
Whenever you watch in an area where Black people live, they live by the railroad track, right?
Right. Right.
Check it out. And then next thing you gonna have is a highway coming through.
Mhm.
So all the people who had local businesses along that Highway 90 to Jacksonville,
Mhm.
the local people would stop in the Black community, get their food, and their long. It's like the chilling circuit. Everybody knows you can stop along here on the way. But when those highways start coming through, people are bypassing you. So that's how people lost their businesses, you
Right.
know, in the communities that were traditional Black communities and self-sufficient. So so you had transportation. So you have pollution with all the environmental issues going on, because you're surrounded by the railroad track.
Mhm.
Okay, so you're living amongst it. Then everything WPA, the Workers Progress Administration, that was put in after the war,
Mhm.
everything there, you had the energy, you had incineration, you had electricity, you had gas, everything that was powering up the city was in the Black community. You
Right.
know, so you got all of those things that causing environmental toxicity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now look at this. That's another system. So you got the environment, you got transportation, and you got housing. So if you can't put people up, what's going to happen? People are going to be homeless.
Right.
So you got the migration, people leaving south, going north, right? Because we think
Mm-hmm.
that's the better job. But then we
Mhm.
get there, they had a trick for us too, because there was industrialization going on. So
Right.
they put you in the factories. So I mean, hey, ain't no way you could have got away from any of that. But they had
Mhm.
because this is all part of the plan. So
Right.
if you look at these systems and how they work, the other one is the criminal justice system. I learned my first public work when I was, I guess, maybe 6 or 7. When I first started going to school, we had to walk past Carolyn Brevard, which is
Mhm.
in my back door. Literally, I
Mhm.
could walk from my back door to go to Carolyn Brevard's school. But we had to walk across town to Bond
Yeah.
to go to school, right? That's like 2 miles away
Right.
every day, back and forth. So we had to go that way because we couldn't go to the white school. So imagine that. That's transportation impact. There was no busing then, and nobody had cars. So we walked, you know, our parents used to say, we walked to school. This is no lie. We walked, and it was cold a lot of times. So when you think about those things and the segregation, we would pass the jail every day. So the people at the jailhouse would see us coming from school, and they would say, "Hey, go down the street and tell my wife, you know, to bring me some cigarettes, or da 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 da. I need some bail money. Just go so and so and tell him to get me some bail money." So we were running errands for the people in jail.
Right.
That was my first public work. You know, I didn't know what I was dealing. I said, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna go for it." I run around and get the story to them, and somebody go down and get them bailed out or whatever. They didn't even know where they were in jail half the time. But so that whole criminal justice system. Now that's another whole story we can get into. We have a longer podcast on that one, but I tell you. So, but these are just citing, and then the education system, you know, and the churches, you know, everybody played their little part in this
Right.
whole thing. So
Right.
it's an amazing thing. So you cannot do this work without doing systems thinking.
Absolutely.
Look, You just got
Absolutely.
2 master classes dropped on your heads and your ears and your hearts and your souls in one interview. Like, no, seriously, listen to what she was just saying. She literally just broke down to you how the black community got into the conditions that it is now. Because most people say black people just lazy, black people
Mm.
never had the opportunity to be lazy in America.
Never.
Right. So white understand too, white people started calling black people lazy after slavery ended because they didn't have the free labor anymore. So it was
Right.
a negative connotation placed on black people. But
Right.
she literally just broke down a couple different levels or different ways that they systematically oppressed and continue to oppress black people through education, through economics, through environment, through th-
Transportation
through transportation,
and housing.
transportation, housing, all that. She didn't even really go into how the welfare system, on top
Ooh,
of all of that,
don't
took
talk
the
about
man, took the
it.
men who were in the home out of the homes.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, she
yeah.
mentioned it. She
Yeah.
did
Right,
mention it.
right,
In
but
the
still,
very beginning, right.
right, but it's just like all those different factors go into where we are today. So the work that we all do is vitally important for us to restore ourselves or for us to give ourselves a fighting chance. Like Dr. Claude Anderson says, we need to be competitive. And right now, as a group of people, we're not competitive. So listening to what she just said, understanding the information and using it moving forward will help us become a more competitive group, but a
Right.
more self-sufficient and self-reliant group of
Exactly.
people as well.
Exactly. And it's okay
Hmm.
to fight for equity. I mean, I think
Right.
that's we have to use that. Equality is okay, but everybody, gets equal. When you get to the first grade, the child who had their mama reading to them every day and has
Hmm.
some books in their house already got to step up.
Right.
So while
Hmm.
these young children come into the first grade equally getting the same level of education, they are already behind. So you got to get to the equality, but you got to get to the equity of it.
Right.
Where is the greatest need? That is what we have to go for now.
Right.
How do we make sure that we're getting need? People call, it's called racism and you call it what you want and all that, but it's about equity. It's
Right.
about making sure that the resources that are entitled to folks who have the greatest need are gotten by those folks.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. So I want to state this because we have a staple final question that we ask everybody, but you are the first person in the history of the Feed and Train podcast series to answer that question before we ask it. But
Oh
it's
God.
amazing though because the question is, if you were the all powerful ruler of Black America, what would you change and what would your message to the people be?
Ooh.
But you laid that out. I mean, you already laid it out to us. We know your angle. We know what you would do, how you would bring it to the community because you explained it to us, especially talking about organizing and everything. So, our hats off to you, Miss Miaisha. Like you
Thank
are
you. Thank you. Thank you.
definitely a jewel within our community, and if you don't hear it enough, just know you are like we're so grateful to have you and everything that you bring to the table for our communities, and just wish you continued success. And we love you, and anything you need, you let us know, and we'll make sure we take care of
And on that question, could I just answer
it. Yes,
one
ma'am.
thing?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say the importance of taking care of your elders. I
Yes.
think that we've lost a lot of that, with regard to because we don't have to live with our parents
Hmm.
anymore. Everybody's got their own thing, got their own place, and they're living separately. And you don't have the communal peace that we started out with because we've had so many other opportunities. We've lost touch with that. Don't forget the elders.
Yes.
Don't forget to respect your elders in every
Right.
way that you can, support them and make sure those folks who got resources and wherewithal come and think about developing places for the elderly to live.
Right.
Elderly people don't have places to live. Most of them are homeless because they live with somebody else. Hmm?
Hmm.
Come on. When you're
Right.
living on somebody else's home or you sharing somebody's sofa, and now with COVID, guess what? The shoulder that's being weighed down most is that of the elder, because
Hmm.
on their little fixed income, they got the people who just got kicked out. They got the people who ain't got no food coming to live with them now.
Right.
So because they got security. They got that $700 check, but that's all it is. Because
Yeah.
they still got to pay the rent, and they still got to pay the utilities. They still got to get their medication. They still got to get their food. So something gonna happen. So there's
Right.
gonna be no food. And that's what we had. That's why we're doing boxes. And thanks to Second Harvest for being able to help to prepare those boxes we can put on people's doorsteps. That is critical because some people are scared to come out because of COVID,
Yeah.
and they are not able to get there because they can't sit in the long lines and wait in a car with somebody to
Right.
get their food. So we even work with Second Harvest to lift that rule a little bit because they were giving one bag per family, and I had 5 families I had to deal with.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
said, you got to give me more.
Yeah.
And so they started doing boxes, and you get the
Yeah.
names of the people, deliver the boxes. Let's do something that's very creative and taking care of our families and taking care of our elder people because they are suffering. You don't know the stories I hear every day about people and being impacted by COVID. And they weren't able to get the money. You know why? Because they had a fixed income. They weren't able to get any CARES money because they didn't have a job. They didn't lose 30 hours of work. So
Right.
if you don't have that happening, then you don't qualify for the CARES funding. So that little $5,000 you would get to support your utilities or to pay your rent wouldn't come to the elderly. Come on, that's deep.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. It is on so many levels. So you're definitely right, though. We need to make sure we take care of our elders because our elders paved the way for us to be where
Yes.
we are. Because, and it's just me because I'm a historian. So when I hear our generation saying, "I am my ancestors' wildest dreams," I get what they're saying, but I want them to understand. No, your ancestors are your wildest dreams because, for one, our history did not start with slavery. So now I understand what they're saying is
Yes.
the ancestors who were enslaved.
Mm-hmm.
That's Joe. You
You know,
giving them too
no,
much
no,
credit.
no. Hold on, let me finish though. But
I'm talking about with the whole thing. You giving them too much credit.
no, look, what I'm saying is
Go ahead.
our ancestors did so many remarkable things before, during, and after slavery that, yeah, I hear what you're saying. We are our ancestors' wildest dreams. No, our ancestors are our wildest dreams because we have to realize we have to take into account everything that our ancestors brought to the table, the totality of it. So,
Mm.
No,
yes,
this is why I say you're giving them too much credit. Most of the people that I've heard say that, who when I then go challenge them about saying something like that, the same with the people that said I'm not my ancestors, I'll beat you up. Whenever
yeah.
I hear people say that and I ask them what their thoughts of the ancestors were, they have some picture of a Kunta Kinte type figure that was all yes and no stuff.
Right.
Like
Right.
you don't even know your ancestors to be
Thank
saying
you.
something like
Right.
that.
Well, that's the same. Yeah. Well, we're saying the same thing.
That's
So,
right. Yeah.
yeah.
You're right. And that's key. That's the historical component of it. Getting to know your people, not just from the books, but you got people sitting before you. Kids don't even know their grandmama's maiden name. You
Yeah.
know, basic stuff.
Right.
Get to know who your people are, first of all.
Right.
I'm not talking about history, that's good, but right in your doorstep.
Right.
Right.
Know
Right.
who they are and do some homework, in that
Exactly.
regard.
Exactly. So, Miss Miaisha, how can people get in contact with you? People who are in Tallahassee or people who will see this interview and would like to have you on their podcast and learn more about you. How can people get in contact with
Hey, miaisha@gmail.com.
you? There it is.
MMIAISHA@gmail.com.
Y'all
Yep,
heard it.
that's
Hit it.
right. Just give me a shout out.
There you go. Y'all heard it. We definitely want to thank you. I want to take up no more of your time because, there's still holiday things going on and just a lot. But thank you once again for giving us the time that you have given us for this podcast. We definitely appreciate all of the knowledge and information and the energy that you've given us today. It was great. It was a great time with you, and definitely look forward to having you back on this podcast in the future.
Thank you all, and take care of your families.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All
We
right.
will. And we'll speak to you later.
All right. Have a
All
good
right.
evening.
Yes,
Take
ma'am.
care. Bye-bye.
Hey, man. I love Miss Miaisha. Bruh. Miss Miaisha, a G, dog. No, for real. Bruh, we be in the trap. Like, hey, we be in I'm not saying like we working in like the dope house, but we in the dope old neighborhoods. Like we in the trap. I look up, there she is.
So you in the trap, but are you in the trap?
There she is. She was there before I was. But nah, seriously, like there are a few people in this city, and I guess next week will be another person in this category. There's a few people in the city, but just a few people that I've met who are genuinely about the people. And that's why we want to make sure we give somebody like Miss Miaisha our platform. So kudos to her. I thank you. She dropped a whole lot of nuggets on our heads. So we got to go rewatch this and process and take notes and everything. But with all that being said, Pat, what's your part in the shot?
In yo motherfucking face.
And mine is don't make dry turkeys for Thanksgiving. That it. Hey man, Free to Train podcast series, www.freedomtrainradio.com. I'm Joseph Ward. He's Patrick Irvin. Once again, shout out to Miss Miaisha Mitchell. And we catch y'all on the flip side. Peace.